Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC. Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come, we all just unify.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. My name is Joseph Patterson, and today we're going to be talking about the reason number 3 why you should vote UIC Jamaica. But before I go into that, did you just see what I was showing you a while ago? It was showing the countries with the highest number of home ownership in the world. Romania was number 1 and Singapore was number 2, both of which are over 90% in home ownership. Tonight, we're going to talk about property ownership in Jamaica and the UIC's policies surrounding all of that. So today we're going to talk about reason number 3, why you should not only vote UIC, but join, volunteer, and donate to help us protect your rights and freedom. Now remember, please help us to beat the media blockade by liking, commenting, and sharing this presentation on all of your social media channels. And don't forget to subscribe and tell all your contacts to do the same. Let's spread the word so that more and more people can know about the UIC. All right. Oh, by the way, let me see who we have on tonight. I'm seeing Sandra Coburn. Welcome. Good evening to you, Sandra. Janet Graham, Lion Rule the Jungle, my good friend Sir West, Norman Smith, JMH, Carol Spence, and the movie star Annalisa Gillespie. Good to see you on, all of you on tonight. We have a very interesting lineup of discussion. on this very, very important topic, which I think is important to all of us. Every Jamaican should be interested in property ownership. So let's get back to the main topic for this presentation. Reason number 3 on why vote UIC Jamaica. Last time we looked at reason number 2, which was to eliminate the power of big money or the PSOJ oligarchy over our government by effecting a 100% publicly funded campaign financing system that would fund all candidates equally. This system will ensure the candidates, the elected representatives, actually represent the people instead of a political party or some crooks that fund them or the big business elites that fund them. Under the current system of campaign financing, those who have the most money usually wins and are then owned by the donors. There's no doubt that the two parties have been playing with us. We showed you that last night. They know the current system. They know it doesn't work. And they know that it works best in their interest and in the interest of their donors, but not in your interest and mine. The oligarchy in Jamaica, as we talked about last night, is the PSOJ, the big business elites who own and control our politicians and our government by way of funding their campaigns. We need to eliminate that power structure and give the power to the people. I can't say back to the people because our people have never had the power. The power has always resided either in the hands of the colonial masters or their representatives. And so what we're talking about here is giving the power for the first time into the hands of the Jamaican people. Good evening, Roland Forbes. Good to see you on. Desmond Smith, big up. Maisie Miller, Scotty, good to see you all on. Yeah, so tonight we're talking about the topic of property ownership, but prior to that we talked about the system of campaign financing and why we need to change it. So under the system of campaign financing, the UIC system, publicly funded campaign is the best way, we believe, to make it affordable. It's the most affordable model. It contains cost. It levels the playing field. It reduces the opportunity for corruption by candidates. It prevents them from being easily bought by their parties, special interest groups, or big business. Under the UIC system, the richer candidate will not have a financial advantage, and the poorer candidate will not be financially disadvantaged. By separating the executive, the House, and the Senate, and having a 100% publicly funded system for campaign financing, we will eliminate the control that parties, the PSOJ, and the colonial powers currently have over our political system and our government. Being independent of parties and big donors means representatives are free to speak out and question every law, every policy, and every action of the executive branch of our government. Under our system, candidates must be qualified and competent to serve as representatives. Not just anybody can come and run. We want to make sure that you must be qualified and competent to truly represent. And you must secure a serious number of nominators who know that when they nominate you, they have lost their votes. Under our system, candidates must take and pass a good governance exam, which includes professional ethics, civics, economics, statistics, and world history. Under our system, all candidates will have the equal access to print media, radio, television, internet, town halls, and debates to get their message out. There'll be no mass campaigning or funding by any individual, group, or business. That will not be allowed. The focus will be on policy, plans, and the character of the candidates instead of the fanfare and big spending. Under our system, all candidates will be vetted, audited, and fact-checked to ensure they're what they say they are and have a clean background before, during, and after they enter politics. So we will have a robust campaign and electoral system that will ensure integrity, and most importantly, it will eliminate big money and reduce corruption significantly. Now, when I did that presentation a couple nights ago, I think 100% of you voted in favor of it. So thank you very much. Welcome, Purpose Driven. Welcome, Wade Noble. Welcome, Douglas Harper. Welcome, Zaret Neal. I think that's Chase. Welcome to all of you. Tonight, we now move into a different discourse. We're going to talk about reason number 3. So I've given you 2 reasons so far why all of us should vote UIC. And tonight, we're going to talk about reason number 3. Here it is. Reason number 3. To make every family a property owner, returning to them the lands stolen from their ancestors, replacing all squatting, ghetto, and garrison areas with quality homes and communities, abolishing the property tax, and giving every citizen a dividend-paying share in farmlands. You could not ask for a better policy than that. This is earth-shattering. This is revolutionary. This is truly the people's movement. And so tonight we're asking you to like, share, and subscribe. Please put your comments in as we go along tonight. And don't forget to give us some comments after we close the session. I am told that accelerates the algorithm that causes us to reach more people. So please do that later on tonight. So yeah, man, we have a very significant reason why you should vote UIC. We're going to make every family, every single family, a property owner. We're going to be returning to you the lands that was stolen from your ancestors. We're going to be replacing all squatting, ghetto, and garrison areas with quality homes and communities. We're going to abolish the property tax. And we're going to give every citizen a dividend-paying share in the farmlands. Now, under the current system of governance, the 2 colonial parties have continued the master-slave model of withholding land from the people that their colonial masters stole from our ancestors. I want you to think about that carefully. The 2 colonial parties, they have continued the same master-slave model of economics by withholding the land, your land, from you in the same way that your colonial masters stole those lands from your ancestors and withheld those lands. This is serious, you know. They have had 79 years in which to figure out, in which to champion, in which to effect the return of your land to you. But they have chosen to do all manner of things other than doing the most basic, most fundamental thing by returning the land to you. And that is why the UIC is going to change that and make it clear that no squatter, no day again. We are going to eliminate so-called squatting by returning the land to the people from who it was stolen. So let's say it loud and clear, no squatter, no day again. Now, the colonial parties and their leaders, they know, because Marcus Garvey said it before, there can be no true liberty without property. There can be no true liberty without property. So they know that if you don't own property, you're not free. They know that freedom is reserved for those who own property. So by you not having any property, they are seeking to maintain your status as a slave. Now, it might not be slavery the way it was before, with the physical chain and the physical whip. They have modernized it. It's now wage slavery, and the whip is not a physical whip. It's government regulations and policies that are used to keep us in line and to keep us down. Marcus Garvey said it well. There can be no true liberty without property. And so they have withheld the property. They have designed a society where only those with generational wealth or those in the political elite who will end up with most of our land. That is why when politicians come in, some of them come in with nothing. I don't like to talk about people who have passed away, but take, for example, I won't mention the name. I'll spare you all the details on that. But there's one politician I know of. He has passed away now. When he came into politics, he was I won't tell you that, you might figure out who it is. He was working like any one of us in a factory, on an estate. He had nothing. Nothing. And he entered politics. And by the time he left, well, he died in it actually. He died in politics. But by the time he died, he had hundreds of acres of lands in the constituency that he represented at one point. Whole heap of lands. And now his children has inherited those lands. How did he come by it? I don't know. I don't know if it was fraudulently or not, but it is suspect. I don't know the facts, I don't know the details, but it's quite suspicious the amount of land he was able to acquire while being a politician. But I know from the design of the structure that they put in place, they want to make sure that only those who were already in a good position, those whose families were connected in some shape or form and got quite a bit of wealth during the transition from the colonial powers to us, they were able to multiply their wealth and buy land. Then there are people like, Michael Leachin, who left and went to Canada, did a good job of being a great businessman, and then come home and can buy up a whole heap of land, get special treatment from the government maybe. But the average Jamaican, the vast majority of Jamaicans, have been left out of the system. And those who find their way into the circle, the small circle of being connected politically and connected through the business elites, they find themselves getting various forms of privileges and acquiring land, while the majority must remain landless and without property, or they must slave to buy back their ancestors' lands from those who didn't even pay for it in the first place. I have land. I have 36 acres of land, which my wife and I slaved and bought. We didn't get any connection. We weren't a part of the political process in terms of the connected few. We had to work and buy it. And there are many of you who have also worked hard and buy a piece of land. Some of you have land and can't build because after you buy the land, you have no money left to build. And so many of you have suffered great difficulties and hardship trying to get a piece of land. And after you get the land, you can't build. And if you build, it takes some of you 30 years to build your house. And if you bought it up front, 30, 40 years to pay it off. If you ever pay it off. Some died not being able to pay off the house. And so these two colonial parties, they have built a society, built a system that is inherently unfair, inherently unjust. And notice, it no matter whether they call themselves socialist or not, they still left you in the same position. So don't be fooled by the labels of socialist or capitalist or communist. Focus on the policies and the impact and the effectiveness of them. So the majority of Jamaicans today remain landless, without property, slaving and slaving to buy back what previously belonged to their ancestors. They're buying it back from people who didn't buy it. From who did our government buy the lands? From who did the crown buy the lands? Did Queen Elizabeth come here and buy land from anybody? Did the Europeans come here and buy land from anybody? Did the Prime Minister buy land? The lands they now call government land. Did the politicians from 1944 until now, who have been our Lord and governors, did they buy these lands? So who give them the right to sell this land back to us? And who give them the right to sell our land to other people? Yes, I know they're going to suggest that their fraudulent democratic system gave them permission. But I believe if you do a proper assessment and ask our people, they would say they gave no such permission. They have been robbed. They have been robbed of their lands through a fraudulent democracy. Now, if you must borrow money to buy land and then borrow money to build a home, it means they will have you, your child, and your grandchildren as wage slaves for the rest of your lives. It has worked. The system is working beautifully. The system of modern day slavery is working very, very well. They have figured out a very sophisticated method of tricking us into believing it's okay that you have to borrow money to buy back the land of your ancestors and then borrow money to build a home. And over that period of time, they're able to keep you and your child and your grandchildren as wage slaves. Because even after you build a home, maintaining a home is very expensive. You having to find money to fix the plumbing as it ages, fix the electricity, the electrical system as it ages, fix the roof as it ages, fix the crack in sometimes poorly done foundations or poorly built various structures. So it's not an easy thing. So when you have to slave and work out all your life and work out all of your energy just to pay the bank the interest on this mortgage, you have almost nothing left. You have no pension. And if you had a pension plan through the government, that's almost worthless, the amount compared to the cost of living. So they have us in a cycle, man. They have us in a trap. They have tricked us really well. And I'm inviting us now to unravel the trickery. I want us to unravel the trickery. And I want us to tear down that system. And I want us to build a system that is solid and equitable and just, that will give us the financial freedom that we all so desperately need. If the land was stolen from your ancestors, it and the homes they built, let me rephrase that. If the land was not stolen from your ancestors, that piece of land and the house that your ancestors built would have been passed down from generation to generation as wealth that you can build on to ensure your financial freedom. Just imagine if you are a 25-year-old, 26-year-old, 30-year-old young man or young woman right now, and your great-grandparents had land that they had received after slavery, and they had built a house on that land, and your grandparents came and added to that house and built it up further, and your parents came and added to that house and built it up further. Just imagine the asset you would have today. That is generational wealth. Unfortunately, many of you today have none because your parents and grandparents were renters all their lives. Some of you had lands and it wasn't regularized. The government never did what they should have done, and it is now gone. Or it is in so much conflict that it is almost gone. So if the land was not stolen from your ancestors, you today would have generational wealth on which you would have built. Unfortunately, many of you have no generational wealth. Like me, you had to start from zero. When you are financially independent of politicians, they can't buy you. They can't trick you with freeness and handouts. That's why for 79 years, after their colonial masters gave them the power, they have not used it to empower you. They have used the power which they claim they got at independence to maintain their power and to try to keep you powerless. You follow me? They have come up with myriad schemes to keep you from ever attaining financial freedom. Now, some of us do, right? Some of us do achieve a level of financial freedom, a level of financial security. I am one of those. I am fortunate because I have worked so hard and so diligently, and I did get some break. I mean, going to Canada was a big deal. That was a big break for me. But not everybody get the same break. But just imagine if we had a government that was really working in our best interest. How much further we all could have been. Just imagine if we had a government that was working on our behalf, thinking the way the UIC is thinking, designing solutions the way the UIC has designed them to really empower our people. Just imagine where we would be today if the last 79 years was used in the way that it should have been used. How much more powerful each of us, every one of our families would have. Yes, some of us would have wasted the opportunity. That's a part of life. We're not talking about those who would have wasted the opportunity. But far more of us would have benefited if for no other reason, but by the fact that we would not be starting from zero. Yeah. They implemented, our politicians simply cut and paste or copy or maintain all the colonial laws. They've implemented the globalists' property tax policy to make sure that even after you slave and buy the land, it is never truly yours. Can you imagine? They created a system, not our leaders. Our leaders don't create nothing more than trouble. They cut and paste, they copy. That's why when we had the recent pandemic, notice they couldn't think for themselves. They couldn't come up with a single meaningful solution other than cut and paste. Whatever the colonial masters said, they just did it to Jamaicans. If they say jump, they don't ask why, they ask how high. They always opt for whatever the colonial masters dictate, they follow it. So what did they do? When it came on to designing Jamaica over the last 79 years, they decided to simply cut and paste property tax laws from the colonial masters' dictates and drop them pound way to make sure that even after you slave and buy the land, even after you slave and build a house, guess what? And I feel the house the house and land belongs to them as long as you don't pay the property tax. That is gone. They can come and take it. Your house that you slave for, your land that you slave and buy, they can continue in perpetuity and charge you property tax forever. Can you imagine how stupid that is? You pay for something, you pay land transfer tax, you pay lawyers, you pay for boundary surveys, you pay for everything, you pay to a permit, you have to buy a permit to build your house, you have to buy everything, pay taxes for the material and all of that. And after you slave and slave and slave and slave and build a house, on the little piece of land, okay, you might not have much. I have 36 acres, you might only have 1/2 of 1/4 of an acre. And you slave and build a house, and then them lick you with a property tax forever. And you have no idea when they're going to raise it. You might wake up like the other day, when this government just came in, quick, they raised my property tax 200%. People had to ball out and they cut back some But you understand what I'm saying? They own the land still. They own your house too, because your house not gonna come off of the land. So your house upon the land, and they're going to tax you into thine kingdom come. My friends, it is all a system of fraud. It is fraudulent, it is wicked, it is inhumane, and it's only because of our fraudulent education system why you and I didn't know this before and why we have allowed it to continue for so long. But no more. No more. We must not allow them anymore to continue with this. Yes, Janet Graham, it's true. Many of us were former slaves when they come in with them stuff. We can't read and write because remember the slave masters, and I remember the slave masters, their goal was to keep us ignorant. That's why we weren't allowed to learn to read. They took us from our good Africa and they captured our good Jamaica, and they enforced educational policies to make sure that we were uneducated. Just like how the current policies are designed to make sure we are miseducated. And so they have gotten away with this for year upon year upon year. And they fool us election after election. I'm asking you this question. Will you allow them to fool you again? Will you allow I really taxation to rob you of your purchasing power. They use property taxes to rob you of your savings and retirement income. They use every single means, tax upon tax upon tax upon tax. Every way you turn, Makajuku, because they are committed to ensuring that you remain poor. And poor doesn't mean you're living, meagerly and destitute. Poor means even if you have a good income during your 30s and 40s, as you progress, your anxiety levels start to go up because you realize you may not have the capacity to keep up. You won't have the capacity to keep up because you can't save and draw on your savings later on for retirement income, because every dollar you save, the value of that dollar is dropping every single day. So in order for you to have a decent retirement income, you have to keep looking for investment opportunities while working 8 hours a day at hard labor, sometimes even 10, 12 hours, depending on what you're doing. So they stress you out. Their system is to stress you out and to keep you frantic and in anxiety and unable to challenge them. They know that it's very likely that the UIC will fail because them most of them halfway in one corner. They know that as long as they can keep you focused on the rat race, and you have to be focused on the rat race, you have to go and earn the income to pay your mortgage, or to pay your rent, or to pay off your student loan, or to pay their taxes. So them most of them halfway in a corner. Them knows that the big business people them will be funding the party, and the party will work for the big business, and they'll keep us all at this level. That is their design, and it has worked. It has worked beautifully for them, and it will continue to work unless we decide to put a stop to it. I am counting on you that you are ready to put an end to this. It's not going to happen by wishful thinking. It's not going to happen by just hoping and praying. We have to back up that with some serious work, because them will work hard to keep we in this condition. All of their policies, all of their programs are designed to undermine your purchasing power and to rob you of your individual liberty and your personal freedom. They want you to remain a wage slave for as long as you can work, and then you must die broke, leaving nothing but debt and the same future for your children. That's what they want. Every one of their policies, every one of their programs, no matter how nice it sounds, whether they call it hope, or they call it care, or they call it heaven, it doesn't matter what they call the policy or what they call the program. If you study it carefully, you're going to find out that it's designed one way or another to rob you of your freedom, to rob you of your financial freedom, to rob you of your financial independence. They want you to remain a wage slave. They want us to remain working hard with no end in sight. And then we must die broke, leaving nothing to our children except a miserable life that they're trying to escape and can't escape, because they don't know either what to do. They want the children to come in the same footstep as the parents and the grandparents. That is why they gave you free education, believe it or not. I know it sounds weird, because they have taught us to champion those words. They have taught us to love the nice sound of those words, free this and free that. So they bring you free education. They design free education to miseducate you by controlling what you learn, who you learn from, but they withheld your land. Isn't that interesting? They gave you free education, but they wouldn't free up your land. You know why? Because free education keeps things just the way they want it. Giving you land? No, that is empowerment. You'd have been better off if they keep the education and give you the land, believe me, because we would have educated ourselves. When you had people like Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey and Bogle and Nanny, those people would not have sat there and remained uneducated. They would have found ways of creating education, true education, powerful education. But no, they found our easy button, free. Be afraid when you hear them come with anything about free. Free education was miseducation, and we're still paying for it right now. You don't believe me? I'm dead serious. I am dead serious. These are not statements that politicians make. You won't hear regular politicians saying these things, because they're not there to liberate you. They're there to trick you. Their goal is to tell you nice sounding things so you continue to vote for them and keep the status quo. I'm not here for that. If I wanted to trick you, I would have joined one of the other two, because that's much easier, much quicker, less expensive, and far more profitable. So they gave you free education so they could rob you, and it has worked. They gave you free healthcare to rob you of the knowledge of self-care, so that they can make you dependent on their colonial masters' expensive drugs and treatment, and then be able to even own your body as their property, just like the Prime Minister tried to do in the last couple of years. They believe that they have the right to your body, to do with your body as they think best. And so that's why they also gave us free healthcare. When they say free education and free healthcare, we learn to abdicate our responsibilities. Parents no longer, in many instances, pay attention to the education of their children. Many parents. Some do. There are still responsible parents around. But if you look across our society, many parents are not engaged in the education of their children. They're disengaged because education is now the job of the government. It's not their job as parents. And they love that. Yes, they'll come afterwards and say to you, parents, you need to do, that's just a joke. They only use that as a scapegoat. When the system fails or when something bad happens, they say it's the parents' fault. When something good happens, if anything good happens, they say it's the government's credit. And so they've used free education and they've used free healthcare to dumb us down. Now we don't even know how to care for our bodies. We don't know what we should do, when we should do, how we should do. We have lost all traction when it comes on to taking charge and responsibility for ourselves and our family and our children. Yeah. So there goes free healthcare, there goes free education. And then they created a massive scam called NHT. They created the NHT scam, the National Housing Trust, and I know many of us like it. I know many people sing the praises of the NHT. It's the best thing since sliced bread. No, it's not. It's a trick. It's a deception. One that has worked beautifully. The NHT was a trick to win votes, to get people into believing a lie where 100% of workers are forced to pay into a system that only the richest 25% will benefit from. And they will do so at the expense of the 75% that will never benefit. Those of you who benefited, in your minds, you can't see what I'm talking about. It's very difficult for you to understand because, but we did benefit. No, I want you to think more deeply. Think a little bit more deeply about this. So what they did was to trick us. The NHT is a beautiful political campaign piece. It sounds lovely. It gives everybody hope, but it's designed to rip off everybody. They're really only lending you your own money while collecting interest on it like a business, from which they then steal the profits to fund all manner of corruption in government. They've raided that NHT fund so many times, but yet still so many Jamaicans are without homes. 75% of contributors will never, ever, ever get a benefit from this. And the 25% who get a benefit, you are, yes, you got the money from the other 75% plus your own, which you will always have to pay back. Yeah, at interest. Yeah, just like a big bank. Yeah, and it creates a massive fund. Yeah, which then the government steals. And many of the homes that they give you are so small and tiny, so impractical in many cases. You now have to find money, all kinds of means, even through theft and corrupt means. You have to find money to expand this home to something reasonable and decent. Now, so tell me I'm lying. If I'm lying, please let me know. Anybody on there, write on there and say, no, Mr. Patterson, you're lying. It's not so. If I am lying, you write on there on the comment section and say, I know so. But if it's true, type true in your comment section and say, this is true. If you have observed and what I'm saying makes perfect sense to you, type true if it's true. I am here. I want anybody. I invite the Prime Minister to come on this program and come and tell you, so when I say a lie. I invite the opposition leader to come on this program and to tell you that what I say is lie. Everything I'm telling you tonight is the God living truth. We have been duped, tricked, deceived, lied to, taken for a ride. And so, over the length and breadth of their many campaigns, you might recall in one campaign they told you deliverance is near, but it never came. In another campaign, they told you money would jingle in your pocket, but that only meant you would never have more than a small change in your pocket. You might recall in one election, they told us we put people first. But what they really meant was that they put their people first, not you. You might also recall in a recent election, not too long ago, they told you to log on to Progress. But what they really meant is that you must suffer so that they can progress. In another more recent election, the big promise was they're going to move us from poverty. Well, not us. They implied us. But they promised a movement from poverty to prosperity, but tricked us into furthering their prosperity while pushing even the middle class into poverty. I hope you see where I'm going with this. I hope you see where I'm going with this. My fellow Jamaicans, it takes a certain level of dunce for us to continue under these two political parties. And I know that they have dumbed us down and have tried their best to make us fully dunce so that they can continue to maintain this evil system that even intellectuals at the university, professors at the university, well-read and well-spoken men and women are so blinded that they would continue to support these two political parties, working against their own interest. Of course, I know they have some minor interests. Those in universities are trying to keep their jobs, like many others. And I can understand you want to keep your job. We all want to keep our jobs. But at some point, we need to grow a backbone. We need to stand up. We need to mean ourselves and our children and our fellow countrymen and women well. And it's time for us to say, enough is enough. We're done with this. We must say enough is enough. We're done with this. And so tonight I'm going to share with you now the UIC's policy. I'm going to walk you through in more detail how we're going to ensure that every Jamaican becomes a property owner. It might sound far-fetched, it might sound impossible, but it's not. I am absolutely certain that we can do this. I know exactly how we're going to do it. But before I share with you how we're going to do it, I want you to see a few videos, very short clips, that puts what I'm about to say in context. The first one we're going to look at is a very short one, which is a bit comical. It looks at the property tax. As you know, the UIC is going to abolish the property tax. And so I want to share with you this short film, which might give you a bit of a laugh, but it's simple and quite meaningful in its brevity. Let's take a look.
Yeah, well, that sucks. I'll tell you what, property taxes, paying for what you already own, now that's a scam.
I did promise you it was going to be short. But yes, property tax is a scam. Now I want you to take a little bit more serious view of the subject. And even though that's quite serious, it's just short and hilarious, but it is serious. Now I want you to look at this rationale for abolishing the property tax. It's given from a U.S. perspective, but all of it remains quite valid for the Jamaican situation, even though it's based on the U.S. Premise. All of it is relevant to us here in Jamaica, and not just to us in Jamaica. I mean, for the entire world. You know, it is my hope that the UIC will influence the entire world in how we think about and look at the matter of property ownership, and in this particular case, property taxes. Let's take a listen.
Hey, it's Kyle, and today let's talk about why property tax is the worst kind of tax, and why it's not really a tax at all, but something that goes against the American dream. The American dream has a lot of promises, but one thing that's achievable is owning your own home. That's symbolically the end goal, that and making lots of money. But what if I told you that you'll never own your home, even after paying off your mortgage? You see, after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars paying off your mortgage, the principal and the interest to a bank, you're still going to pay rent on that property. To who? To your state. Well, technically at the local level for many of you. Property tax is the worst kind of tax, and it goes against American values. And I don't mean conservative or liberal ideas of values. I mean reasonable, sensible values. This affects the middle class much more than it does the rich. What happens when you don't pay your property taxes? The state takes it away. In California, the property tax is about 1% of the assessed value of the property. Well, more like 0.77% plus other stuff. And if you can't keep up with the payment, you have 5 years, or else the state takes your home. Yes, even after you paid it off. Does that sound fair? We as a society are already taxed on just about everything. You can't even really call property tax a tax. It's more like perpetual rent. Sure, the tax isn't too bad. New Jersey has a 2.44% property tax, highest in the country, and most states hover around the 1% mark. But even so, what if you're retired and you don't have an income and you happen to own a house? Fortunately, that's the only thing you can afford, and it's free and clear, except for that property tax. Plus, it hurts future homeowners. It's one thing when you bought your house in 1925 when it only cost $3,000. But now, house prices are getting more expensive, and if you enter right now, your taxes are going to be a whole lot more. And don't get me started on refinancing. You're just asking to be taxed more. In New Jersey, you can expect to pay almost $8,000 in property taxes. If that sounds low to you, then you probably have a more expensive home. You can deduct your property tax when you file your income tax. But the money is paid, and you're giving the government time with your money when you could be using that for something else. Maybe something comes up like an emergency or something important like that. And you shouldn't be punished for that. No one should. Forget the price you have to pay for a moment. Let's focus on the fact that this is a terrible thing. After spending 30 years of your life paying off your mortgage, which a majority of homeowners are up to right now, you still can't really call your home yours. The tax is irrelevant. The mere existence of property tax is immoral. Taxes are by nature a one-time cost on a transaction. When you pay for your bill at a restaurant, there's a sales tax involved. When you buy a laptop on Amazon, there's taxes included. I can accept a tax on the purchase of a house. In fact, that's already a thing. But what if you bought a laptop on Amazon and you're initially taxed on it? Then Amazon comes to you on the anniversary of your purchase and taxes you again. Every year you own your laptop. You can see how ridiculous that is. You're cheating the American people with it. Property tax is not a tax. If you want to pay for city and county services, you actually come up with an actual tax. Merely owning something cannot be reason enough to be taxed. This comes down to finding where to draw more funds, or something like a city or county can reasonably function. First, cut spending. Every level of government wastes tax dollars. The federal government alone has been found to waste almost $650 billion in 2015 alone. That's from liberal welfare programs to conservative military expenditures. Many states run a deficit, and the ones that run a surplus get too much federal assistance paid for by the richer states that run a deficit. What a vicious cycle. Governments waste so much money. That's the underlying problem. It's simply a fact of life. Giving someone the power to tax means giving someone the power to abuse their spending. It's human nature. And last time I checked, governments were run by humans. Second, when you can make more governments run more efficiently, you can see how much waste there was. You'll see all that tax money your city has aimlessly collected. Property taxes make up about 35% of a state's revenue. That comes from residential and commercial properties. So even after making our governments more efficient, 35% is a lot to take out. So here are two reasonable compromises on property taxes. When someone takes out a mortgage to buy a house, whether it's a 30-year, 15-year, or whatever, have them pay the property tax for as long as they have a mortgage on it. People buy and sell their homes every day. Last year, 14,630 homes were sold every single day. That's 5.34 million homes. That means 5 million families took out a 30-year mortgage and bought a home, which equals 30 years plus whatever refinancing as a way to contribute as property taxes. Although not perfect, it brings much needed financial relief for homeowners who have completely paid off their homes. This will save the American dream and truly give someone who owns their home true ownership. Next, levy a property tax on commercial properties that produce a reliable income. A reliable income means the property must produce a stable income stream, and that tax-free timeline can be anywhere from 3 to 5 years. After the period is done and with the expectation...
Okay, I think you get the point. So the key point here in this part of the lesson is for us to understand that property tax is actually fraudulent and it needs to be abolished. Now, if you agree with me, please type yes in the comment section to let me know that you agree that we should abolish the property tax. If you don't agree, type no, and feel free to put a comment as well to let us know why you don't agree with us abolishing the property tax. The UIC, when we take over government, we will be abolishing the property tax. If we're elected. If we're not elected, you're stuck with it. But we are 100% committed to eliminating the property tax. It is theft, it is a scam, and it is wrong and needs to go. So I'm going to share with you the last video now. And this video is my absolute favorite. I love to share this video because it reminds me and should remind you that everything the UIC is talking about, every single thing we're talking about can be done. I know they're going to tell you, and as we become more competitive in the political marketplace, they're going to try to find all kind of things to say. They're going to say we're stupid, we don't know what we're talking about, where's the money going to come from, how are you going to do this? By the way, I'm an accountant, I'm a CPA, so I do understand and appreciate the whole issue of where does money come from. And I truly know where it comes from, and I know where it will be coming from. But they're going to try to discredit me. They're going to try to discredit the organization. They're going to say many things. They've tried already. They tried to destroy us from within, and they will later on, when we become more visible to more people and people start to really take us seriously across the country, they're going to really try to dig in and try to destroy our credibility on this subject. But watch. My plan is to make sure we get this message out to the Jamaican people and get them understanding. So this video now is going to give you a clear indication that what I'm talking about can be done. In fact, it has been done. There are some things we're going to do differently than how it is done in what I'm going to show you. Of course, it's Singapore, right? I'm taking you back to Singapore. So Singapore has done what I'm talking about in so many areas, right? And particularly the housing front, making their country the second highest home ownership rate in the world at over 90%. Singapore has done that. I'm going to show you how they did it. We're going to do ours similar and different. There's some things that they do that we're not going to do, and there's some things that we're going to do that they did not do. But the essence of what they did, we're going to do. We're going to do it better than they did, and it's going to work marvelously for the Jamaican people. So let's take a look now on the Singaporean model as to how they achieved over 90% home ownership rate, which is just unbelievable, but quite doable and amazing. And we're going to share with you how that was done. Here we go. Here we go.
For most of the world, the term public housing conjures a clear mental picture. At best, it means uninspired rows of the same drab concrete boxes, the Soviet-era copy and pasted urban hell. That, or the poor, run-down, crime-infested bad neighborhood, the place those with no other options end up. For most of the world. And then there's Singapore. There, public housing looks like this, and this. Because 80% of the population lives in one of its 1 million public apartments, they carry no social stigma and are enjoyed by the rich and poor alike. The small island city-state has adopted such a unique set of policies that the usual measures fail to accurately capture just how far ahead it is. The ratio of median house price to income, for example, is the most common simple way of comparing affordability. It reveals how many years the average person would need to work to afford the average house in their area. Unfortunately, it's based only on privately sold properties, a reasonable standard for most countries but meaningless in Singapore. It also neglects factors like the availability of loans, government subsidies, and national savings funds, all of which help make public housing the obvious choice for most all Singaporeans. Another misleading statistic is the home ownership rate, which would seem to make it only one of many countries where ownership is near universal. Confusingly, this number is calculated based not on the number of adults who own a home, but rather the share of homes occupied by their owner. In other words, a hypothetical city where prices have risen to such completely unaffordable levels that all adult children are forced to live with their parents would technically have a 100% home ownership rate, seeing as every home would still be occupied by its legal owner. So while Singapore does have a 90% home ownership rate, its true accomplishment is 90% flat neighborhood and estate satisfaction, while at the same time remaining affordable for everyone. Somehow, its leaders seem to have solved the problem of housing, that it can be affordable, high quality, or plentiful, but not all three. The question, then, is can these policies be exported elsewhere? Public housing was first introduced on the island with the creation of the Singapore Improvement Trust under British rule in 1927. The SIT was an attempt to solve the city's growing problem of overcrowding. The poor at the time mainly lived in unsanitary slums and high-density shop houses, where they readily spread disease. The situation was made even worse by Japan's World War II invasion and occupation, during which thousands of homes were destroyed and thousands more were haphazardly constructed. When Singapore finally gained self-governance in 1959, just 9% lived in public apartments. While the population had grown rapidly, from 250,000 in 1907 to 567,000 in 1931 and nearly 1 million by 1947, housing had lagged behind. An already dense 9.7 people per building had become 18 in that same period. By almost every measure, the SIT had failed. Major changes were needed, and fast. Just weeks after assuming power, the newly formed People's Action Party began replacing it with the current Housing and Development Board. While the new department clearly had its work cut out for it, in hindsight this regulatory blank slate was probably its biggest strength, allowing it to envision utopia unhindered by the past. It was also highly motivated. Lee Kuan Yew, the nation's first prime minister, considered the founder of Singapore, wrote that homeownership was the key to giving its population of immigrants a stake in the country. Because of this, the HDB was given an extraordinary degree of freedom, including a personal guarantee that money would not be a problem. It was exempted from building ordinance laws and mostly allowed to operate without approval from other departments. Immediately, it got to work. The first priority was existential, solving the acute housing shortage by building as much and as fast as possible. Early flats were designed as emergency single-room units with the most bare bones of amenities. At the same time, using its almost infinitely long leash, it began aggressively acquiring land. In 1961, a massive fire broke out in a squatter settlement, prompting the government to pass the fire site provision, which allowed it to acquire any land occupied by squatters which was cleared by fire or natural disaster. The fire and the government's success in relocating the victims was held up as proof of its efficacy, paving the way for future legislation. 3 years later, another law was amended which enabled the state to reclaim land without needing to compensate the affected seafront landowners. Then, in 1966, the Land Acquisition Act took this trend to the extreme, authorizing the acquisition of land by, quote, any person, corporation, or statutory board for any work or an undertaking which, in the opinion of the minister, is of public benefit or of public utility or in the public interest for any residential, commercial, or industrial purpose. Landowners could not object, and compensation was then provided at below-market prices. When it ran out of land to take, the state began reclaiming the sea, which makes up about 1/5 of the country today, including the famous Marina Bay. From 1960 to 2005, the percent of government-owned land grew from 44 to 90%. And by the mid-1960s, hundreds of thousands had moved into government housing under the leadership of the prolific Lim Kim San. Naturally, there were a few snags along the transition from slums to high-rises. Many residents had no idea how to budget for rent or electricity, while others simply found life that high up unnatural. Overall, though, the process was remarkably smooth, and when Lim died in 2006, he was remembered as the mastermind behind Singapore's residential revolution. In 1964, the HDB introduced the home ownership scheme, which today attracts international attention and envy. As of 2020, there are over 1 million public flats, mostly situated in 24 new towns around the island. Each is designed to self-contain around 1 to 200,000 people, with their own schools, grocery stores, hospitals, gyms, and malls. Most residents only need to leave for work, which is made easy by the attached MRT train stations. And although their coverage is extensive, areas without them are connected by smaller light rail stations. While this is functionally similar to estates in Hong Kong, where rows of high-rise apartments surround a common area, mall, and train station, there's one critical difference. Instead of walling in residents and preventing air circulation, new towns in Singapore are arranged in a somewhat checkerboard manner, with alternating tall and short buildings. It's not hard to guess in which estate residents feel happier, are less likely to vandalize, and are prouder of their communities. Another important feature of its apartment buildings are known as void decks. One floor, usually the first, is reserved as a communal space for Malay weddings, Chinese funeral wakes, polling stations, and other events. The units themselves come in many shapes and sizes, from 1 to 5-room flats and everything in between. There are even executive condos designed, built, and priced by private developers, but subsidized by the government at below-market prices, subject to the HDB's restrictions. The best apartments are nice enough to evade the usual public housing connotation, while the low end is made affordable by a variety of government programs. First and most importantly, Singaporeans have no choice but to save their money. All workers under 55 are required by law to contribute 20% of their wages, and their employers another 17% to a social savings fund that can be withdrawn from only for a few specific reasons, of which buying a house is the most common. In this way, and countless others, Singapore has completely removed housing from the free market. Prices are set based on one's ability to pay, individuals can't own more than one public flat at a time, and although foreigners are not banned from buying, they're required to pay significant stamp duties. The nature of housing is thus a place to live, not an investment. Which is not to say homes aren't assets, they do serve that role, just secondarily. Owners of new subsidized flats are allowed to sell them at market rates after 5 years of occupancy, usually to buyers who don't want to wait the 3 to 4 years for new projects to be completed. Likewise, the elderly are encouraged to sell their flats and downsize. One catch underlying all of this is hidden in the definition of ownership. Here, that means 99-year leases. For the most part, residents are free to buy, sell, and inherit property, with a few exceptions. But the government is always and only the true owner. None have yet expired, but as that date steadily approaches, the question of what happens next looms large, and could present a heated political challenge. In the meantime, there's a bright side to government ownership. It's responsible for maintaining, renovating, and even upgrading public apartments free of charge. Of course, no system is without flaws. There is always a concern that the same heavy-handed policies which make housing so effective will be taken for granted by younger generations, or worse, perceived as a form of social control. Indeed, from the very beginning, Singapore has designed flats with the explicit intent of shaping society. A mild example is the arranging of different size units next to each other to create cohesion between income levels. 2-room units next to 3-room, 3 next to 4, and so on. While 1 and 3-room or 2 and 5-room mixing was said to create more division than unity. More radically, to prevent earlier racial tension created by separate and disconnected communities, public housing follows strict ethnic quotas. As of 2016, its majority 74% Chinese residents could occupy no more than 84% of a neighborhood. Its 13% of Malays could occupy at most 22%, and its 12% of Indians could occupy 12%. Once an ethnicity has reached its quota, no more are allowed to buy a flat in that neighborhood or block level. In theory, this encourages a sense of unity and ensures different groups have close contact by going to the same schools and shopping together. Controversially, though, it also means as a byproduct, buying or selling a flat may be easier or harder based on your ethnicity. Finally, subsidies heavily favor married families with children, so much so that locals joke, "Will you marry me?" has been replaced by, "Can we buy a house together?" In truth, housing policy was always just as much a means of modernizing, some would say erasing, the culture of Singapore as it was about giving people a place to live. Supporters argue the People's Action Party has maintained its 7-decade monopoly on power for obvious reasons. By all measures, HDB policies have had a monumental impact on Singapore, and there is perhaps no issue more personally significant than where, with who, and how well your family lives. Cynics, in turn, counter that it's no coincidence the party which meticulously designed Singapore receives the vast majority of its votes. To the extent that demographics, family structure, and geography determine voting preferences, one could say, the People's Action Party has a built-in advantage. Naturally, this raises questions about transferability. Setting aside the environment which enabled its housing to thrive, like its disproportionate number of smart, charismatic leaders and its world-class transit system, Singapore's public housing is also inseparably linked to its unique brand of authoritarianism. Where else, after all, would constituencies trust their government to acquire nearly all land and to exert near total control over where and how they live? Even in other autocratic states with similarly absolute powers to the HDB, how could those powers possibly be utilized for the benefit of the people, not merely hijacked for political gain? So while there are certainly lessons to be learned, and indeed some of its state-owned companies have been contracted abroad, it should be clear that its public housing is more an idea than a method. That, despite how tempting it may be to selectively copy and paste from what appears to be a model nation, doing so without the foundation of a strong, powerful, technocratic state would produce only a weak house soon to fall. While we're all stuck in our houses, why not make use?
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that film. It gave you quite a perspective on how Singapore achieved its 100, well, not 100, but over 90% home ownership rate. As I said before, we're not going to follow their model in its entirety, but it's good for you to understand their model, to see how it works, and for us to build on that model. The UIC will be adopting a more market-driven approach, but with a very, very involved government in order to make housing, as Singapore did, a nice place to live, as opposed to you using, housing as a means of investment. That will not be outlawed by any means, but we're going to make sure first and foremost we're providing housing for all of our citizens, and not just ordinary housing, quality housing, as I'm going to explain to you more now. So we have a plan. There's a better way. We believe there's a much better way than what we have done in Jamaica so far. The method of withholding lands from the people, making them slaves to own a house, having so many unfinished homes across the country, and just having poorly built communities, we find that unacceptable. And so the UIC has a better way, and we're here to explain and provide it. We have a plan to return the land to you and make you a real property owner within the first 5 years of a UIC administration. To this end, we will eliminate property taxes, so you only pay once. You pay tax once, and that's it. we will undertake a major housing program that results in a 98% home ownership rate here in Jamaica. We know this can be done because it is already done by Singapore and Romania, in fact. Romania is the number one on the list in terms of home ownership, and Singapore is number two. Currently, Singapore is at about 93%. We can learn from them. We can do even better because we're in a much better position than they were when they did their massive housing construction boom. We have more land than they did, and they do. We can benefit from what works, and we can avoid what doesn't work. So we have the benefit of hindsight. We have the benefit of looking at so many different countries, so many different models. So we can learn from all of them, and we can build a solid solution. Now, these new homes that we're going to build will be mostly high-quality condominiums. And we're doing this because we want to make sure that we preserve a lot of our land space for organic farming. So our condominiums are going to be complete with maintenance, just like in Singapore. So it's not going to be left to the people to maintain it. They're going to, of course, do their part. But all of these homes will come with a maintenance program for proper upkeep. They'll have community centers with a digital library so that our young people and old people, everybody can actually benefit from having a library that actually is available throughout the community. You have the regular library space, but being digital, you'll be able to access information right across each of the units. We're going to make sure that all of these developments are children friendly with a child friendly park, play areas, daycare, botanical gardens, community centers, with gyms and so on. So it's going to be a real community, each and every one of them, a real community that people can, spend the rest of their lives in and feel very comfortable. We're going to stop the urban sprawl to protect our farmlands and convert all such spaces into massive industrialized organic farms and food processing factories to make Jamaica the organic food capital of the world. You'll be amazed at how many jobs this is going to produce. We're going to have more jobs than people with this model of organic, industrialized organic farming. So this is not going to be your small farms. You're talking about massive, well-designed, well-run, a lot of greenhouse farming, permaculture principles being employed, producing our own fertilizer locally here, so cutting out the fertilizer imports, making sure these are organic fertilizer, temperature control, utilizing solar energy, water harvesting management. It's going to be top of the line. We're pretty much going to be learning from the Netherlands, which is the second largest producer and exporter of food around the world. For a small European country, which does not have our solutions here, don't have all of our advantages here, and they're doing so well. So we're going to learn from them, build on what they've done, outdo them even over time, and use our universities here and colleges here in a far more productive way of helping us to make Jamaica the organic food capital of the world. So combining massive farming with massive home construction will make for a very interesting mix in our economy. Every family will be awarded a home if they need one, and those with existing homes will qualify for renovation and expansion to meet the needs of their existing residents, and also to make some of these residences available for extended family members by building on them in different ways, if the family wants. So we're looking at a really good mix of condominiums, existing flats or homes, depending on size and structure. If they're in ghetto or garrison communities, many of those will be changed in ways that makes it more suitable, both for the owners of it today and for the adjoining families and communities around. We're going to make sure we modify all of that. The price of the homes will be sold at below market value, and the payments geared towards income level of the family using what we call an intergenerational mortgage structure. Both Jamaicans at home and those in the diaspora will qualify for a housing development program. And this is very important because we want to give our diaspora a chance to buy back into Jamaica, to get back into the space, and to benefit from the kind of programs that we are bringing forward. And I just believe that we need to have a Jamaica where we don't look at Jamaica just as who are here, but a Jamaica which sees all Jamaicans around the world as part of our ecosystem, as part of the family. And so any program we design must be designed to allow our Jamaicans abroad to take full advantage of it without any form of discrimination at all. So our housing program will be for all Jamaicans. In addition to owning a home, every Jamaican will be awarded shares in the lands that we dedicate to industrial organic farming. This is very important because this is going to be, arguably the largest industry in Jamaica. Right now, farming is dwindling, but our plan is to bring back farming as a major contributor to the job market, to our export, and even as part of our tourism product, the way we're going to build the organic farming in Jamaica is going to become pretty much an example to the rest of the world when it comes down to organic farming. And it's going to be something that people want to just come here and actually look at, get a tour of. It's going to make us the leader in the world when it comes on to farming technology, particularly on an organic scale. And for that, we're going to have a huge, market out there in the world where we are going to be a major supplier of organic foods at premium prices to countries around the world, carrying the Jamaica brand with it as well. Because we're going to make this, because these lands really belong to the Jamaican people, it's not the government lands. So our model of helping to make all of us property owners is to give Jamaicans a share, a stock in these new organic farm industrial complexes. And so whether or not you lift a finger to do anything in farming is irrelevant. You will get dividends, a passive income coming from the profitability of these farms. Now, all of these farms are going to be run by qualified, competent, trained persons who are, that's what they want to do. That's what they love. That's what they're skilled at. So we're not going to force everybody to go into farming. We're going to let those who want to be in farming be in farming. We're going to make sure that they have the skills, they have the tools, they have the technology, they have the space and the resources. And we're going to be very deliberate about being a modern mass industrial complex for producing organic foods and shipping it around the world as far and as wide as possible. Now, there are many jobs that will be created. It's not just the physical job of planting and reaping. I can tell you this, when we're done, there'll be no more, farm workers leaving Jamaica to go overseas to work, because you're going to have enough job here for everybody who might want to go on a farm work program. And it will be at a price that is comparable or better than the price you'd be paid if you go abroad to work as a farm worker. So you're talking about farm workers getting jobs. That's the lower end of the scale, if you will. You're talking about administrators, scientists, engineers, accountants, marketing, sales, advertising, all kinds of operating positions, technicians, trades positions. So I think we're going to have a job shortage, meaning a shortage of workers. The Prime Minister talked about a shortage of trade workers recently. We're going to have a real shortage of workers when we put this in. So we're going to have to import people to help us because of the amount of jobs we're going to be creating by this. Now, our housing program will cause a major construction boom over the first 10, 15 years of our administration. This too will be creating many jobs, stimulating a massive economic growth rate, which will make it very easy, by the way, for Jamaicans who want to return, because they'll have jobs, they'll have business spin-offs, so they can pretty much pack up and bring back their knowledge here, and there'll be a space for them to get back in, because the income level will be comparable with what they're leaving in the countries that they're coming from. So we're going to have a reverse brain drain. Many Jamaicans wanting to come back to Jamaica now because we have the opportunities, we have the industries, we have the demand, and the price point for the jobs are comparable to what they're getting in the US or Canada or England because of the degree to which we're producing and exporting globally. So yes, Winston Hammond, this is going to be in full concert with the real estate industry. So we're not going to be competing with the local real estate industry. We're going to be working with that industry. So all of the different trades and the contractors and developers, everybody will be getting a piece of this. All of the different elements in our existing economy will be benefiting. The small businesses will have the spin-off effect of the income generation coming into their businesses. Whether it's a retail outlet, a grocery store, the auto mechanic, the plumber, the electrician, the carpenter, there'll be massive spin-off in all areas. It's going to be the largest economic growth that Jamaica has ever seen since the time when it was the crown of the, in the crown of the English colonial thing, benefiting them. So our organic farming and food processing industry will also take off and provide significant source of foreign exchange to help fund our rapid housing expansion. So you're linking what's being done in the farming space with what is being done on the housing space. And the two are going to have a symbiotic relationship. As one is growing, the other is growing beside it, and they're benefiting each other. The organic farming, the export, the food processing exports, those are bringing in well-needed foreign currency for us to trade in goods that we don't produce here to further the construction boom. That's augmented by the labor force. You're going to suck up all the labor locally to the point where, people are going to be working overtime because there's just not enough labor to meet that kind of heavy, fast demand. Because our goal is to get people in these houses as quickly as possible so they can shift their focus from subsistency to higher productivity levels, right? This will not only make us food secure, but water and energy secure as well, since we'll be engaged in massive water and renewable energy harvesting industrial revolution at the same time. So we're not doing one behind the other. We're carrying different streams of development. You have the housing stream that's happening, you have the organic farming that's happening, but they're both happening in conjunction with our water harvesting expansion, really putting in water harvesting facilities, connecting those even within the housing construction we're doing that's being built with water harvesting features in them, so we can reduce the pressure on the old outdated system we have now and bring in more systems online, more interconnectivity across the country, so you no longer have the continued problem of water shortage or low pressure of water. At the same time we're doing that, we're tapping into the renewable energy sector by really investing in getting our colleges again fully involved, our small businesses, our big business involved in renewable energy. So you're talking solar, you're talking biogas, you're talking geothermal. We're really putting Jamaica on the map in terms of unearthing all of these different streams of energy, but doing it as an industry. So we're not just doing it for our benefit, we're doing it to be able to trade as well with other people. Trade in terms of the technology, trade in terms of the expertise that we're going to build. So we're going to become like a mini Israel when it comes on to water harvesting technology, effective use of energy, building energy system, cogeneration system that allows us to automatically manage energy shifts and deployment and distribution across the country, which will shoot up our productivity by bringing down our energy cost and allowing our manufacturing base to have cheaper energy in which to build and produce, again, affecting right across the different industries. On top of all of that, and this is really very important, On top of all of that, we will be making all of Jamaica safe, clean, and orderly. This is very important because what this is going to do, if we make all of Jamaica safe, clean, and orderly, and if we make every local community look, smell, and feel like a tourist resort, what do you think is going to happen here? This will augment our eco-friendly community tourism approach, which will see us quadrupling our tourist population by making all of Jamaica the tourist product. This is going to drive up our foreign exchange earnings even further and make every Jamaican a property owner within that 5-10 year period, because what's going to be happening here is your construction boom is driving certain aspects of your economy. Your organic farming is driving a complementary aspect of your economy. Your water harvesting and energy harvesting industry is driving another aspect of your economy. And then on top of this, you have made the entire ecosystem of Jamaica not only good for Jamaicans, not only clean and safe and healthy and beautiful for Jamaicans, but now you would have expanded your tourism base by having a story to tell, a beautiful product to offer, and one that truly involves all Jamaicans who want to be a part of that sector and no longer segregating it into small enclaves. We're now going to have a massive tourism product. This is going to shoot our income through the roof when it comes on to tourism, increasing the tourism population, increasing stopover arrivals, increasing the spending at the local level, increasing the purchase and use of our own indigenous foods and our own indigenous local entertainers. So you're going to find you're literally eliminating the need for anybody to be involved in crime as a way of dealing with poverty, right? You'll still have persons who engage in crime for other reasons, but you're now going to be reducing the number of persons who need to see crime as a way out. Coupling this with our plans concerning corruption elimination in government, you're looking at a much better Jamaica with this kind of design going forward. I could say a lot more, but at this stage I need to pause and take your questions on the subject matter. So do we have any questions here from anyone? Let me see what we have here. Janet Graham said, Mr. Patterson, please keep in mind playground area of the multiple housing complexes. Keep in mind safety of women and girls. Absolutely. You might have missed it, Janet. I mentioned before that playgrounds, botanical gardens, parks for the family, those are very important. Water fountains, wading pools, the library, the gym, the community center that allows people to come together and do things. So all of that is critical. It's not just the building. We're going way beyond what you're used to in Jamaica. It's not just the building anymore. It's the lifestyle. Yeah. Wade Noble says, under the leadership of President Patterson, Jamaica will be the next Singapore, and better. Absolutely. What role will the NHT be playing under the UIC government? Norman Smith is asking. And persons who have already owned a home, can they purchase another? All right. So Norman Smith, the NHT is going to be folded into this new program. So all of that NHT asset and money is going to be converted into this new program that is going to replace the NHT by not giving 25% of donors or forced contributors a benefit, but all Jamaicans. And no, you will not be able to buy more than one home under the program. This is for home ownership. It's not for investment. Persons will be able to invest if they want to buy any home on the private market, no problem. But in this program, the entire aim of it is to make all Jamaicans property owners. That's the key objective. Setup receives super chat donations during your live. Okay, thank you. So Naika, you can pay attention to that. Maybe set up the super chat donation and see if that can work. Thank you very much, Ennis. This is Jamaica we're looking forward to when Mr. Patterson is our president, says Joan Levine. Thank you, Joan. What about recreational spaces for stadiums, theme parks, circuits, etc.? Wonderful, Devereaux. The entire system is designed. We're looking at a Jamaica that is absolutely designed for recreation, green spaces, stadium, theme parks, all the stuff that's going to make Jamaica a beautiful place for us, the people, and a beautiful place for tourists to come and enjoy. The whole Jamaica will look like a theme park, actually. Where you're talking about, for the first time, streets, sidewalks, a simple thing like sidewalks, careful planning and design of sidewalks for the elderly, for the disabled to navigate Jamaica comfortably and safely. Proper rail guards, street lights, solar-driven street lights to give us proper lighting around the country. Everywhere you go, every community having a lovely park. Existing communities now having a lovely park brought into their space, playground areas, little wading pools, community pools. A very different Jamaica. So what else do we have here? Farm workers would appreciate that move. They wouldn't have to travel abroad to work where they're treated like slaves. Absolutely. Living in deplorable conditions. Absolutely. Patricia, also leaving their families. Many of them had to leave their families from months on end to go work somewhere. All kind of damage happens in between. So yes, we're done with that. Update schools curriculum. Absolutely, Victor. We're moving to an Afrocentric school curriculum that is based on the whole person development, and where the shift is from passing exams to building solid competences, both from a universal knowledge level to also technical competencies to be able to be highly productive. Super chat. I missed the super chat comment. What is that now? The comment here said, super chat would be good, can get donations live, which will help spur confidence and maybe help others who are hesitant to also contribute. Thank you, Devereaux. We will definitely work on that. I hope the treasurer is looking and will work on that for us. Yes. Any other comments or questions? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Janet, I'm suspecting the housing complexes will be built with nice carpeted, wide corridors, garbage chutes, and atriums. Absolutely, you got it, Janet. We're not looking at little boxes. We want very, very livable space. Very livable, it must just be a space where any one of us would be happy and comfortable to live in. Yeah, so we're going to really follow the guidelines that have been set in the Singapore model, where they're really focused on lifestyle and quality of living, and we're going to build on that as well. Yeah, thank you. Will our cities be moved towards being people-friendly and not car-centric? Very good point, Deborah. Yes, we need to, one of the things we're going to do, which hasn't been mentioned here yet, is to make public transit truly high quality, so that we can reduce the number of vehicles being imported and the amount of gas, and oil that we have to purchase, and really make the space a lot more commuter friendly and easier to navigate. So for us, safe, clean, accessible, affordable is what we're talking about in terms of public transit. Mixing trains, high-speed trains, together with buses that run on schedule, and a mix of taxis and smaller vehicles throughout some of the so-called rural areas. We will not be calling anywhere rural. The entire Jamaica will be like a city-state, with carefully planned management of our resources. We believe everybody should have the same quality living, at a minimum, that is a quality living space. So we're talking about making a place like, St. Elizabeth here, which is supposed to be rural, a dynamic, city looking feeling, but with beautiful green spaces, massive green spaces, with our farmers being, really being treated well, having not just the basics of water and electricity, but now beautiful roads, parks, gardens, shopping centers, things that are built for them to enjoy in close proximity, but at the same time keeping the massive expanse of our lands and having those being used appropriately. Nature reserves, yes, Devereux, all of those. For example, the Cockpit Country and others, those are going to be massive nature reserves that are, dedicated to nature, dedicated to preserving our ecology, way of life. So, for example, you'll have communities, special communities, like Rastafari communities. I want to give them back the Pinnacle, for example, if not the same space, something similar for them to develop that culture and that identity and have that as a part of our tourism product and our historical product and our people diversity. The Maroons, similarly, respecting key areas for them that they occupy. They can follow their indigenous practices, but still be a part of a larger ecosystem that they can interact with easily and benefit from and interchange with, and allow the outside forces, the tourists to come in and see the diversity of culture and communities that are built along not only indigenous lines, but optimizing modern technologies in ways that does not diminish the visuals of our natural beauty as well. Ken Francis, yes, so we share the same dream. Thank you. Otis says, I'm joining from the Isles of Wight in the UK. I really admire your vision for our beautiful country. It's my first time joining your live. What can we from far do to help? Otis, the most important things you can do to help is to share our content with the wider society of Jamaicans and to get all of them to get involved in donating. Join us, go on our website at uicjamaica.com, join, volunteer, donate. Every dollar you donate is a chance of winning more and more votes because we're able then to travel, to communicate, to contact, and to reach people in areas that are hard to reach at the moment. So thank you for that. NS, the Maroon celebration is tomorrow. Absolutely. Water storage and fish farms throughout the island. Yes, NS, absolutely. Drop the link. Lion Will Jungle will do that. Question. Every parish's capital city will have these high-rise condominiums. Good question, Douglas. If that's necessary, the bottom line is our goal is to minimize the impact on our farmland. That's our true asset, our farmlands and our biodiversity. So we don't want to spread out the living space so much that we lose these vital assets and then not have the income generation. So we're going to really build up. And bear in mind, Jamaica is very big compared to Singapore, right? Singapore is 1/15 our size. So Jamaica, using the ratio of population to space, Jamaica could easily hold 90 million persons. Now we are going to have in just 3 to 4 million people, right? Initially. As people start to return and as we have more people vying to come here to live because of the quality, that population will, in about 30 years, grow to about 10 million. So we're still going to be way below the number. But my particular goal is to make sure that we never put any pressure on our agri-lands and on our ecosystem and biodiversity to lose them. And that's why I'm so against bauxite mining, because without even spreading out our population, bauxite mining is destroying our land and robbing us. So we have to stop that quickly. I know it's not going to be fun to the ears of those who want to keep it, but we do need to stop it. and very, very quickly, and try to, reclaim as much of that land as possible. Another banquet, I don't know yet, purpose driven. I don't know yet. I hope the fundraising people are watching. Christine Simpson Mensa is our director for fundraising and donor engagement, so she will tell us when the next banquet is. Annalisa says, I'm not sure about the fish farm, as the fishes are fed with growth hormones, which is unhealthy. Good one, Annalisa. Yes, remember though, Jamaica, we're going organic all the way. So whatever farms we're putting together needs to be organic. But good point. Janet, yes, there will be parking spots available, not necessarily for every single person. There might be shared places, but our goal is to minimize the need for too much vehicle purchasing, just so that we can preserve as much of our land and reduce our importation without force. Will the UIC build watermarks in houses, especially in countryside? Howard, we're definitely going to have, I don't know if we call it watermarks, but we're definitely going to build in all of our construction water harvesting features to make sure that we're doing a good job of collecting and using water efficiently and effectively. All right, so I think I've covered all the questions so far. Let me know if I'm missing any. Last chance, any other questions from anyone? All right, so let me say to all of you here tonight that I know that this is a massive vision. It's a massive aspiration. It's a major mental challenge for many, given that where we are today as a nation, we're doing very poorly as a nation. We have underperformed by leaps and bounds. We're way behind where we should be today. But I'm thankful that Singapore has made my life easier by showing us that it can be done. If I was saying this to you and I didn't have Singapore, many might just say, no, this guy is a madman. But they have proven that it can be done. I know it can be done. All we lack is the leadership and the good governance model to make it happen. The UIC has the model, we have the leadership, and now it's up to you whether or not you're going to fund the UIC so we can win the next election. All of this is going to come to naught if we don't raise the money to compete in the next election. The other two parties, they will have over $300 million, maybe $600 million this time, given inflation and all of that. They will have a massive amount of funding. I'm sure the powers that be do not want the UIC to even come close to winning. So it's really up to you. Yeah. I am doing all that I can, dedicating as much of my time as possible and more than I should be dedicating given my other responsibilities. But I am serious about this. I am very committed to this cause, and I hope that you also share the same degree of seriousness. Help me, help us to get to 1,000 donors at $25 a month this month. Election at the local level is just around the corner. The Prime Minister can call it anytime. He must call it by February 23rd, I believe. So we are going to be facing an election very soon. We need your help. We cannot do this without you. We don't have the money to compete effectively, and we need it. So I need 1,000 of you to make that decision. Well, we only need about 800 more of you to make that decision. Thanks to the 200 of you already who have made the decision to contribute last year and will no doubt be contributing this year. But we do need another 800 minimum to step up to the plate and to do the same. What else can I say? Yeah. So we have to do this, folks. We have to do this. We have to do this. We have to find a way. We have to find a way to do this. We must find a way. I'm committed. I'm here. I'm happy that I have been fortunate enough to live outside of Jamaica and to see that we can live without burglar bars. We can have a safe, clean, and orderly society. We can create a Jamaica where each and every one of us can live, earn, and retire with dignity. We can become a true republic. We can become the world's first true republic in the modern era. And so, if you want that, if you believe in that, then I beg of you to do the right thing and help us to pay for it. All I ask is for you to give what you can. Some of you can give $10 a month. All of our members do that. That's the basic membership dues, $10 a month on average. A number of you are giving more than that, $25, $50, $100. All we need is for 1,000 of you to be giving $25, just 1,000. Yeah, just 1,000. And that's when I see that suggestion. It's a good one. Yep. So we need to say a local representative at work. There are local UIC representatives at work. I'm not sure what you mean by that. There are local representatives at work. There are a number of UIC representatives. You have Winston Wright in Westmoreland, in Bethel Town. You have Carlene Ramirez Acosta in Portmore, Edgewater. You have Chase Neal in St. Mary. You have what's his name again? Yeah, there's so many. There are candidates that are local. What do you mean by local? I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean by local representative? I'm curious now. What do you mean by that? Because I'm a local representative. I am the representative for Northeast St. Elizabeth, and in particular Breeze River here in St. Elizabeth. So when you say you want to see a local representative, are you suggesting I'm not local? What is that question? I see something about China. It says here, I love the way China has lookout areas in their forest or nature areas without impacting the species. Yeah, great idea. Lovely. I saw that when I was there, Jojo. It's a good idea. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. All right, so let's give me some rating here. Let's give us this program some rating before I go off. If you thought that the presentation was meaningful and of the quality that you appreciate, give me 100%. If you were not impressed at all, give me 0. And if you find it so-so, give me 50% or somewhere around there. And it says I was in Jamaica for 3 months and I could not any information for the Murray area. What's that? Not sure what that is. But yes, give me your grading, your scores on tonight's program. And remember, do me a favor on this one. When I close out the program, go there and give us a feedback. Just write something to say how you felt about tonight's program, what appealed to you most, what you like most. So Trelawney, all right. Thank you, Victor Williams. You know anybody out there, Victor? Help us find some candidates, no? Everybody, help us find candidates. Look into your community, look into your contacts list, and find a good quality person in your community and send them to the website and let them go on and apply to be a candidate, uicjamaica.com. So all of you here tonight, please go and find us. Each of you, find one candidate and send to us. Find somebody and get that person to sign up and apply to be a candidate of the UIC. Okay, let's do it together. Let's all do something, play a part in the whole process. All right? Okay. Nora Allen, excellent, Nora. Good to see you on as one of the candidates. Which area are you in, Nora? I don't think I have met you. as yet. I know Carlene is busy working with a number of candidates. I have some to interview shortly as well. All right. I think we're done for tonight. And we normally want to make sure we remind us that it's one Jamaica and we are stronger together. So one Jamaica, stronger together. Let us stay focused. We have an election to win. We have a country to change. We have a future to design. All the best. Have a good night.